The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung had a quote, and what he said was, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life and you will call it fate." In other words, what he's saying is, if you aren't aware of what's going on in here, it's going to affect and control out here, and you're not going to think that you have any say in it. Meaning, if you are living in a victim mentality but aren't aware of that pattern of thinking of living in a victim mentality, you're going to go, the world is a horrible place. I always get used. Everybody's out to get me. But you're not aware that the reason you think the world is that way is because of a certain position that you're standing in your mind. It's from a certain model in which you're thinking. Or if you think, I keep attracting toxic partners, I keep attracting toxic people who use me and abuse me and mislead me and all this stuff, you think that's like objectively the way it is, but in reality what's going on is certain conditions within you that you get attracted to toxic partners. It's completely the other way around, where you're attracted to them in some sort of weird, distorted way that you haven't yet made conscious. And what Carl Jung is suggesting here is when you do make that unconscious, he also calls it the shadow self, when you do make that shadow aspect of yourself conscious, you will begin to see the way that it's your mind that's acting as like cues. It's like psychological cognitive cueing that's causing you to see the world in the particular way that you're seeing it. And it's also causing you to seek out and attract certain circumstances that are congruent and in harmony with that unconscious mental patterning that you have. Now, to share with you a personal story of this that literally, it blew my mind when I realized it. This was a couple years ago, maybe it was like a year ago or something, but it was a little while ago. And I was on my way home from work. I was riding in my car, and I'm just riding along, just kind of unconsciously riding along like we do. And suddenly I came to the realization that I was sad. And I was like, I wasn't sad like 10 minutes ago. Why am I sad right now? Why do I feel like depressed and sad and like melancholic and nostalgic? And so what I did was I started backtracking. What was I just thinking? Where did this come from? I started inquiring into the source from which this sadness was arising. And it dawned on me that like 3, 4, 5 thoughts ago, I was thinking about a relationship that had ended a few years ago that I was still in the process of grieving and moving on from. And I realized, I thought of that relationship that ended, and it made me sad and start thinking about it, and it made me feel all these emotions. And now I'm here sad. Okay, that makes sense. But at face value, that's pretty obvious, where I thought of the relationship that I'm still processing and it made me sad. But what really caught my attention about that instance that I just shared with you guys is that I didn't notice myself thinking and ruminating on the relationship and thus getting sad. So in other words, I didn't know why I was sad. I didn't process what made me sad. And if it weren't for my curiosity of, wait, why am I sad right now? I was just fine 10 minutes ago. What caused this sadness to come up? If it wasn't for that curiosity, I wouldn't have felt the inclination to backtrack and sort of reverse engineer my thinking to come and see, the reason I'm sad right now is because I was just reminiscing on my relationship with my ex a few years ago. Now, what came out of this experience I had was realizing how critical it is to pay attention to our minds. What Carl Jung, the quote I shared in the beginning there, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life and you'll call it fate. You'll call it destiny. If I didn't backtrack into my mind and see that the reason I was feeling sad was because of thoughts that I was thinking, I would think, well, I'm just sad. Why are you sad? I don't know. because it's unconscious. You haven't made it conscious. So if I didn't inquire into myself, if I didn't do the work, as it said, I wouldn't know why. I wouldn't know the reason why I feel the way I do. I would just think, that's just the way it is. Little do I know, the reason it's the way it is because of thoughts that I'm thinking. And see, this is why it's so important. This is what I realized out of, like this instance that I just shared is, oh my God, there's probably so many people right now in this moment as you watch this video that feel a certain way because of thoughts that they're thinking and vibrations that they're resonating on, which is, you could think of vibration as just like where your thoughts are at, and they feel a certain way because of thoughts they're thinking, but they aren't aware that the reason they feel that way is because of the thoughts that they're thinking. They just think this is just the way it is, the way it is, the way it is. I have people in my life who are absolute Debbie Downers, doom and gloom, nihilistic, the world's a horrible place. Well, the way that I see it now from this work that I've done of self-inquiry and, introspection and contemplation on myself is realizing, dude, the world is a horrible place for you because you're insisting that it is. To you, the world is a horrible place because that's the lens through which you're viewing reality. And see, the reason it's so important to consider the thoughts that you're having and to know why you feel the way you do is because of thoughts that you're thinking is because, first of all, if you can inquire into your mind and see that the reason you feel a certain way is because of what you're thinking, that will begin the process of you learning how to shift that inner narrative. Now, I'm not telling you, when I say to shift that inner narrative, I'm not saying to force those bad thoughts away and think positive thoughts and toxic positivity and just be happy always and pretend I'm not upset. That's not what I'm saying. In order to shift that inner narrative, the first step in that is acknowledgement, which means, oh, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm nihilistic, I'm confused because of what I'm thinking. Period. I'm not saying push it away. I'm not saying make yourself feel guilty because you feel that way. I'm not saying pretend that you don't feel that way and act like you're positive and happy. What I'm saying is the first step in shifting that inner narrative, which is the unconscious that's controlling your life, as Carl Jung suggests, is to acknowledge it and note it. To recognize that it's a reality that's taking place, where the reason you see the world the way that you do is because of the thoughts that you're thinking. Our minds are like a lens through which we are looking at life. Life is not objectively this way or that way. Life is what we make it. Life is what we say it is. Haven't you noticed? Like for me, the way that this can play out is how, I can be at work and I'm in a bad mood and maybe I'm unconsciously thinking negative thoughts that are stimulating this negative mood and putting me in a bad mood. Next thing I know, I'm just in this crappy mood. And what results from that is everything around me is annoying and pisses me off. My coworkers are annoying. I don't like what I'm doing. It's not fun. It's a drag. I'd rather be home doing X, Y, or Z. Everything is annoying and monotonous and a task. And then, an hour later, 30 minutes later, a day later, whatever it is, I'm in a different mental state. I'm in a higher energy. I'm in a more clear and harmonious energy. I'm thinking better thoughts, put simply. And now, work is awesome. Work is sweet. I love what I'm doing. My coworkers are fun to be around. Everything is flow. It's not that hard. It's easy. It's flowing. It's chill. It's laid back. Same objective reality, but different perspectives of that reality. I'm at the same place with the same people, but the only thing that's changed is my perspective. So if we don't like the way that we see reality, we might not even be saying it to ourselves in that way, which is the interesting thing. You're not saying to yourself, I hate the way I'm viewing reality. Like if you're nihilistic, or cynical towards life. I hate the way that I'm viewing society. You don't say it to yourself like that, because saying it like that is even a sly way of realizing that the reason you feel the way you do is because of the way in which you're looking at it. The way we say it is, I hate society. We don't realize that the reason we're feeling that feeling of hating society and feeling that cynicism is because of the way in which we're looking at it. So when you don't take inventory of the way you're thinking, it's going to, like Carl Jung said, control your life. You're going to be at the whim of your thoughts and feelings, and your thoughts and feelings are going to bleed out into the world, and you're going to think it's the world's fault for you thinking and feeling the way you do, when it's entirely the other way around. You see in the world that which you bring to it mentally, emotionally, spiritually, on every level. What you see in the world is what you are. This is why when somebody flips out at you, as long as you're leading a life of authenticity and love and maturity, them flipping out, their outburst says more about them than it does about you. It doesn't say it has nothing to do with you. What that is them not being able to control themselves. So it's so important to, like I said, take inventory of your thoughts. When you start do this as a challenge, as a practice. When you start feeling negative, when you start feeling low and sad, pay attention to what your mind is saying. And it might blow you away. It might blow you away. Because more often than not, your worst enemy is you. When you listen to what you're saying about yourself, it's oftentimes worse than what anybody could ever say to you. You're your own worst bully most of the times. And you're also your biggest savior, your biggest hero too, but that's when the shift takes place. But when you start feeling down, when you start feeling upset, look at what your mind is saying. You idiot, you shouldn't be feeling this. This is stupid. I'm so upset. This world sucks. You're a failure. It'll never work. They never loved you. I'll never get anywhere. I'm not worth this. I don't deserve that. When you listen to your mind, you might start to realize the little window of insight might allow you to begin to realize, oh, I see why I feel like crap right now. It's because it's directly correlated to those horrible thoughts that I'm thinking. When you walk by the mirror and you look at yourself and in your mind you think, ugh, I'm so ugly. I'm so fat. Oh, that zit on my forehead. Oh my god. My forehead, like me, I got the caveman forehead going on. I used to look at that and be like, oh god, dude, like I gotta like put my head on a sander or something, like shave that shit off, you know? Ugh, what's all that? My forehead vein, that's so yucky. I gotta get my forehead vein removed. This is gross. Think about it, like when you hate on yourself like that, you're creating that reality. But you know what? That's not, like, for me personally, that's not the way I think anymore. Sometimes I'll literally look at myself in the mirror and be like, I'm a good-looking guy. I'm a beautiful spirit. I'm a beautiful being. I have come so far. So much has changed. I love you. I'll look at myself in the eyes, in the mirror, and say, I love you. And what do you think the emotions are associated with those, we call them affirmations, but it's not even really you're not using it as a strategy, it's the truth that you see. You're not affirming something. Affirmations are oftentimes trying to dissociate from how you actually feel. But when you really feel that energetic shift, you start to realize you're a beautiful being. And that inner narrative starts to shift. And so what results from that is a shift in the energy that you feel. You don't think you're ugly. You don't think you're gross. You don't think you don't have what it takes. You start lifting yourself up. So the first step, I'm kind of talking about shifting the inner narrative, which is critical, but what's equally as important as shifting that inner narrative is beginning to realize what it is in the first place. So many people Like, you ever heard somebody say, I don't have an inner dialogue? That blows me away. It's like, what do you mean you don't have an inner dialogue? What you just said to me, you said, I don't have an inner dialogue. Okay, say that, but without saying it out loud. That's your inner dialogue. Say it right now. I don't have an inner dialogue, but say it without saying it. That's the inner dialogue. So what do you mean you don't have an inner dialogue? That inner somebody that says I don't have an inner dialogue really startles me. It frightens me. It concerns me because that inner it's almost like they're completely adhered to it. They're completely dissolved and merged into it where they're not even aware that thinking is something that's happening inside of them. They are the thinking. The thought that came up that said, I don't have an inner dialogue, they haven't created a safe space from it. They aren't even aware of that thought because, in essence, they are that thought. So when somebody says, I don't have an inner dialogue, that's really scary because you need to be able to witness the inner dialogue to be able to realize the the discrepancy, the distance that inner dialogue has from how you want to actually feel. If you want to feel, I'm sure we all want to feel beautiful feelings, beautiful emotions, beautiful energy, uplifting, positive, success, love, beautiful stuff, right? So what do you think the inner dialogue would be saying in those instances of feeling that beautiful energy? It probably wouldn't be talking down on itself. It probably wouldn't be self-deprecating. It probably wouldn't be judging other people. It probably wouldn't be thinking life is a drag. It probably wouldn't be bullying itself and others. It would probably be really high, really relaxed, shedding love naturally, really calm, really in the flow, really present, really easygoing, strong, beautiful, wise, naturally wise. So it's so important to notice that inner dialogue because it's by noticing that inner dialogue that you begin to be able to shift it. So when Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control and direct your life and you will call it fate, he's not lying. We need to be able to see and trace our thoughts so that we can know why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And it's in that we can begin the process of shifting that energy. It's said, this is really beautiful. It said, the ancestor of every action is a thought. Right now, this app, YouTube, that you're watching this video on, that's a thought. That's a manifested, materialized thought. This camera that's recording this video right now was a thought. It's an idea. This light, everything, look around. All of this around us, all of the man-made stuff is thought put into action. And your life is the very same way. Your life is the very same way where what surrounds you, your job, your relationships, how you spend your time, your physical health, your mental health, the state of your life is a result of the thoughts that you've been thinking. So when you change the thoughts or have new thoughts or have better thoughts, it's going to change your life. You know, there was one time where I was sitting outside. This wasn't too long ago. It was last fall, I think it was. I was sitting outside at work and I was on break and I was just sitting down and I was watching the leaves blow around. You know, it's fall and the wind's blowing and the leaves are blowing all around. And it suddenly dawned on me, the leaves blowing reveals the pattern of the wind. And if it weren't for those leaves, I wouldn't be able to know what the wind was doing. The wind allows me to, the leaves allow me to see what the wind is doing. Think about it. Like, it's the same idea of like if you were to put dye into water, the dye would show you the current of the water. It would reveal it. You would see the dye moving whatever way it's moving. It's the same thing of how the leaves act as substance that reveals the pattern of the wind, which would otherwise be invisible. And in the same epiphanous kind of way that all this stuff occurs to me, I realize, oh my God, our actions in life reveal the patterns of our mind. Our mind is like wind, and our actions, the way we live our life, is like the leaves. And the way we live our life reveals what we're thinking, how we feel inside. That's why somebody blowing up on you is like leaves blowing around going, oh, the wind inside of them is anger, rage, resentment, hatred, pain, suffering. You know, when someone's leading a beautiful life, doing beautiful things, being a good person, helping, being of service, pursuing their dreams, making their dreams a reality, you can be certain that the wind inside of them is a positive, uplifting wind. It's a beautiful energy, you know? And the mind is kind of similar to wind in that it's this sort of etheric, invisible force. Where's your mind? Try to find it right now. Where is it? Where is the mind? Where is my mind? Where is the mind? The thing that looks for the mind is the mind itself. It's almost like it's this phantom-like being. Same with the wind. You don't know what the wind's doing. You feel it blow on your face, but you are the reference point to understanding what the wind is doing. It takes substance, it takes an actual thing in the world to recognize what the wind is doing. Leaves, sand, you can, oh, it's coming from the right side, you know? And that's the same thing with our minds. And this is why it's so important to, it's, you know how it said actions speak louder than words, and to look at what somebody does as opposed to what they say. Somebody can say, I love you, but then beat you in the next breath. Somebody can say, I'm not lying, but they are lying. Somebody can say, I didn't steal that, I didn't do that, but they did do it. The actions are reality. The inner mind can be dissociated from those actions. Look at what somebody does, because that's speaking the truth. That is speaking the truth of who they are. What they do, how they live their life, how they treat you, how they treat others, how they treat animals, really big one there. That reveals where they're at, what their mind is doing. You know? You know how like a magician will do like sleight of hand, well they'll like distract you with this hand, and then over here with this hand they're doing something else, they're sneaking in the thing or whatever. That's what we can do, where we say something appealing and pretty, but we do something differently. So pay attention to what people do, and also pay attention to what you're doing, because you can live in a sort of cognitive dissonance of where you're lying to yourself. I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm okay, I'm over that relationship, I don't care about that, oh, that doesn't bother me. You can be saying that to yourself, but all the while, look at how your body feels. You're sad, you're depressed, you're angry, you're confused, you're anxious, you're scared. Your body is telling the truth, but your mind is delusional. Your mind is being delusional and in denial. So pay attention to the visceral reality of how you feel and what you're doing. That's just as important for you as it is for seeing what others are doing, where you pay attention to what somebody's doing as opposed to what they say. Look at how you feel. That's the reality. If you want to know where your thoughts are at, look at how you feel. Because good feelings and negative thoughts do not exist simultaneously. They go together. They're kind of one being. Thoughts and emotions are kind of it's almost like the heart and the mind. The brain and the heart, you know what I'm saying? They kind of go together. So if you feel like crap, it's almost always indicative of crappy thoughts. So notice what you're thinking. I'm not saying force those crappy thoughts out of there and think positive thoughts. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is notice those crappy thoughts, and it will give you direct insight into why you feel the way you do. And then as far as shifting that energy, that is a whole other can of worms that we could talk about. But I guess just put simply, the one thing I will say to that of shifting that negative inner dialogue is to allow how you're feeling. Stop trying to shift it. Stop trying to get rid of it. Stop trying to control it. Stop trying to push it away. Notice it and give it love. Respect its presence. It's there for a reason. You're not wrong for feeling upset. You feel upset because your body follows suit with what you're thinking. So you're being intelligent. You're thinking bad, negative thoughts, and so your body is following suit. You're doing good. You're doing good. The only thing is you don't want to feel like crap. So by noticing what you're thinking and allowing it and appreciating the energy of the situation, the dynamic that's going on, it begins to naturally dissipate. It begins to play out in the image of just sitting and watching a fire go out. Or sitting and watching a stream go by. Watching a clogged dam become unclogged and undammed and just flowing. You just allow. Our natural state is high. But what we need to do to get into that natural state is to get rid of all the blocks. Get rid of all the negative thoughts. Get rid of all the dissonance, all the denial, all the pretending it doesn't bother us. And clean up our act, essentially. So, like I said, as far as shifting the energy, that's an entire other can of worms to talk about. But what I wanted to emphasize and shed light on in this video was the importance of being able to notice that the reason you feel the way you do is because of what you're thinking. The way you feel is directly correlated to what you're thinking. So next time you say to yourself, why am I so sad? Why am I so upset? Why am I so angry? Why am I so whatever? Why am I so anxious? Look at what you're thinking. Do a little bit of reverse engineering, as I said, and backtrack into what you've been thinking the past 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, a day, a week, 10 years, 30 years. Backtrack what you've been thinking, because the way you think precipitates your actions, and your thoughts determine your life, especially when they're unconscious. That's when, like Carl Jung said, you're gonna call it fate. Oh, it's the way it is. Even though we made up the way it is. We made it up to be the way it is. So pay attention to what you're thinking. It's critical to your healing, and it's critical to the process of shifting that inner energy. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. And if you did, if this resonates with you and you watch my channel, or this is the first video you've seen from me, I'm offering right now free coaching sessions, completely free hour-long sessions on Zoom. And you can go to the top of my YouTube channel and you'll see a link that says Beta Coaching Program, and it's in there that you'll be able to sign up for a completely free session with me. So if this resonates with you, if stuff on my channel resonates with you and touches somewhere deep within you, and you've got something going on that you want to talk about with me personally, I highly recommend booking a session with me, because it's completely free, and this honestly won't last that long. I'm doing the free sessions for just a limited time. It's sort of like a experiment, you know what I mean? So don't hesitate, don't sleep on it, it's worth it. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, consider liking and subscribing, because it really helps these videos go a long way, and I greatly appreciate it. So I will see you all in the next video.